We are live. Welcome back to another live reaction on Red Tinted Glasses. Another midweek reaction, slightly worse for wear today after last night's trip to Dingwall, where Aberdeen drew 1-1 for the second time with Ross County. County going 6 unbeaten at home, and the Dons' struggles on the roads continuing. Callum, not the result we were hoping for after a disappointing Monday night in the transfer window, which of course we will come on to.
Well, it's been a fantastic couple of days to be an Aberdeen fan, really, hasn't it? I'll come clear at the start. I did not see the game. I'm on um, before girlfriend moves to Budapest duties, essentially, right now. So didn't see the game. Watched the highlights. Um, there wasn't many. Didn't seem great. And from the moaning I've seen on Twitter, doesn't fill me with confidence. It's just been a fantastic couple of days for the Dons. Living the high life.
The moaning on Twitter basically being me last night.
Little bit. You leave the little muscle boy alone. That's all I'll say.
Well, to be fair, when I see folk applauding that at full time, it was very frustrating because I just felt for all the data that we had last night, over 60% possession again, 17 shots. We just don't do enough to get a result. And it's the same old stories, Callum. We concede with the first shot Ross County get on target. It is so frustrating watching it time and time again.
I honestly don't know how we somehow keep doing this. In terms of when it did actually come to their goal, which we'll get on to, it didn't even seem like there was that many. Like it wasn't like an individual error. It just collectively, it was very soft. I think that's largely been the case throughout the whole season. I don't know where this is going to end, and it's not looking good given we've got Livingston away coming up at the weekend. Then we've got away in the Scottish Cup, and then away again at Motherwell. Yeah, we need to pull out the bag this month somehow. And we didn't start off with a loss, so given our away form, is that a positive? Is it? Probably not.
No, and you, Callum, did say on a previous episode that this was almost coming up to a season-defining set of fixtures. We looked at it as probably an ideal, if you want to call it that, run of fixtures that we should probably be looking at winning. And it's two away trips. Obviously, the St Johnstone game the weekend getting called off. We've only taken 1 point from that two fixtures. It's really not the standard or expectation levels that us as fans have anyway. I'm sure obviously the players and management feel the exact same, but for me the performance levels just haven't been there.
Yeah, certainly not. As has been the case basically the whole season away from home. But also, not even looking at the performance levels. You look at Ross County, who came back to draw against Rangers, came back to draw against us. That's also fight, grit, and determination to get those results, which it just seems like we don't have. Which is great, but it's just really, really frustrating, and it does get back to wonder, like like the thousands of fans that go traveling on the road. I mean, they deserve a lot better, don't they?
Yeah, shout out to the A96 being closed all day yesterday as well and creating a diversion. But yes, Callum 1903, I wasn't best pleased on Twitter last night at all. That roadworks and diversion didn't help. But on the team news, Callum, obviously Aberdeen starting the first game without Ryan Hedges. That saw the debut of Vicente Bizaouin into the starting 11. Also returning for the first time for a while was Dylan McGeoch, a player, as I've always said on this show, has been, for me, very underrated in his time at Aberdeen, maybe not overly appreciated. I think had a solid showing last night. He came in for Teddy Jenks. And Johnny Hayes fit again, and probably one of the best performances I've seen from Johnny Hayes in recent times last night, coming in at left back. I know obviously he got a lot of rave reviews after the Rangers game, a performance I didn't maybe rate as highly as some others, but I thought last night he was absolutely excellent. But Bizaouin, obviously, this is where I know you haven't seen the game, and you've managed to catch some of the highlights. I didn't really think he was, absolutely terrific. Yes, he got to the byline and he got a few balls into the box. Maybe he just needs some more time with Ramirez getting used to playing Ramirez in match environments. It's all well and good being on the training pitch and being able to link up well there. But second half, I mean, like most in Red last night, faded badly, I felt. And I just didn't really see that kind of creativity. Maybe I had a bit high expectations for him.
Also, could have been maybe the 10 or so pints we consumed beforehand. And it is harder to judge when you're at the game rather than if you're watching on TV or watching highlights, whatever. So I'll come to your defence in that part. But
thank you.
Also, I think you've got to remember he's just a young kid, just coming over, getting used to the league, getting used to his surroundings, new teammates, etc. You say obviously building up a relationship on the pitch as well as on the training field. Not even had that much time on the training pitch either between now and then. So I think it'll take time. I've got faith in our little muscle boy. It's quite frustrating that this is where we're at now, where we are pinning essentially all of our hopes on this this young kid that's just come into the league, which is, it says a lot given about our transfer business. But I will ask you the question, Glenn. How much did we miss Ryan Hedges?
A lot, but I also think we're missing Marley Watkins as well. We're going to come on to it in a little bit, but I think the way Stephen Glass tried to change the game was just incredible, and not in a good way. I don't know if he's just forgotten that we can use 5 substitutes, but once again, he only used 2. I didn't feel he did enough to change the game. A lot of you are getting involved in the comment section during this live with your thoughts on the season and last night as well. So thank you very much for doing that. We're going to bring a few of them up as we kind of move on to more related topics that your comments may relate to. But yeah, Callum, absolutely. I do think almost if we had both Vicente and Ryan one wing, because it all just felt like it was just one side that we had that threat second half. I felt most of our attacks were coming down the left with Johnny Hayes, with the occasional opportunity down our right side. But the ball again, just never getting into the box quick enough. It was always a cutback from Ojo to Ramsey and then trying to get a ball into the box. By that point, the county defence had got themselves back and set up. I remember Keith actually saying to me in the first half, he said, I thought the Edinburgh City first 45 was poor. He was like, that was almost equal in terms of how uneventful that first 45 was. I mean, Aberdeen were just limited to chances from distance. As I said, 17 shots last night, but there was a Ferguson header. He went close with that. And Dylan McGeoch, probably the only other player that tested Laidlaw, obviously coming in for his first start in a good few matches, testing him from distance with Dylan McGeoch. So, when you've got a new keeper coming in, I know obviously that he was their number one before the signing of Maynard Brewer. I didn't feel we worked him enough.
Certainly from the highlights, obviously a few saves to make, but they're all saves you'd expect him to make. There wasn't one that sort of stood out where you thought, bloody hell, he's pulled off a worldie there. Yeah. And it is just frustrating. As I say, we are in these games, we are tending to get a lot of shots off, but it is all from range, which admittedly I do like to see rather than maybe waiting for like the perfect chance. But at the same time, it's still just slightly not enough in terms of actually testing the keeper and making them pull off these absolutely fantastic saves. You mentioned Funso Ojo there. Saw him coming in with a lot of flack, but at the same time, not a winger at all. Sort of. So, but I think, and also in terms of not going to the bench enough, as much as we did have options in sort of Matty Kennedy, maybe Jet, Michael Ruth, even why not give him a go? It also probably tells you that he wasn't backed enough from the bench. If he doesn't feel backed enough from the board in the transfer window, if he doesn't have those options that he's willing to trust from the bench. So that's also another thing we've got to consider.
Yeah, and I just think when you've got that options on the bench, we've even got Adam Montgomery, the loan signing we brought in from Celtic, which we'll come on to as well. There was other options there, to try and change the game. But on that point, Callum, about the shots, 17 shots. I was trying to remember, how many of them I could, and 7 on target. I barely remember 2 or 3 of them. Let alone all 7 being on target. But once again, we're seeing Aberdeen constantly having double-figure amounts of shots, but the conversion rate onto target is less than half, because we're almost taking these pop shots. We're not working keepers enough. And for all the, as you say, taking that opportunity, which is sometimes nice to see, so sometimes just frustrating that we something's not right in the final third. And now with all the pressure on Christian Ramirez for the rest of the season up top, you can understand why there's growing frustration, certainly online.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's encouraging to see them taking on that shot instead of perhaps sometimes waiting for the perfect opportunity. But at the same time, when that's what you're resorting to, that's sort of the other side of the coin, which is very, very frustrating. And you mentioned there's a lot of pressure on Christian Ramirez right now. When he's not getting the service, although he works hard, perhaps not going to create something out of nothing himself. It is very, very frustrating. And then the only options you have to turn to is a young kid who's spent the first half of the season all alone at Falkirk, or J. Emmanuel Thomas. I don't know who I'd prefer out of those two.
Yeah, it's a toss up. But the first half, as I said, it was largely uneventful in my recollection. But the second half, Callum, we've been critical on this show countless times of Aberdeen starting second half poorly. For once, we actually started on the front foot, and for all the nice passing play Aberdeen have done over recent weeks, it's back to route one, and it's Scott Brown with a long ball over the top, and Johnny Hayes, excellent to get onto the ball, driving into the box, and a really good finish across the keeper into the bottom corner.
Certainly, I think credit has to be given for Scott Brown. I don't know whether that was the intention or not, but it certainly caused problems for the Ross County defence, and certainly to Johnny Hayes too. The amount of times we've seen that ball just get flashed across the goal to nobody or something, but he actually managed to take it on and find the bottom corner. And I think it probably does highlight, well, certainly from the highlights that I saw, Johnny Hayes certainly our biggest threat. Which, when you're relying on someone of his age to cause that, when he's starting at left back, that's another massive, massive concern, which we seem to be full of right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the biggest concern as well is when you do take the lead, you have to be able to hold on to it for more than 5 minutes. And that's what Aberdeen failed to do. We did have a chance. I think it was Bizaouin's shot was kind of blocked / deflected by Ramirez and kind of ended up coming to nothing. But Ross County went up the other end of the pitch. Hungbo got booked for diving. And a minute later, Regan Charles Cook found himself in loads of space again down Aberdeen's right hand side, which seems to be, that's 3 games in a row now we've conceded from crosses coming into the box from that right hand side. The cross from Charles Cook was deflected, and it came out to Ross Callahan, who had acres of space. Nobody goes to the ball. Nobody tries to close the shot down. Scott Brown actually jumps over the ball when he does hit it. And Joe Lewis, he's got nothing. He can't do anything about that. It's coming through a ruck of bodies. And yeah, as long as that shot's on target, it equalises the game. And that's what it does. And Ross County then have something to hold on to.
Certainly, I mentioned it before. There's sort of no, I wouldn't say there's any sort of individual errors, which we have seen a lot of the time leading to that goal. But as a collective, it is very soft. I mean, Scott Brown jumping over the ball is not ideal. I think the closest man getting to closing down Callahan was Johnny Hayes. Then maybe didn't quite get tight enough, but he had a lot of ground to cover to do so because Callahan was just in acres of space.
Yeah.
And hits the target. Lewis, no chance at all, really. As you say, probably unsighted, and then expecting it to be deflected at some point, given the amount of bodies between him and the ball. But once again, just very, very frustrating. And how was the reaction to that, Glenn, if you recall?
Just one of, kind of just summed up our season in terms of the manner of the way we conceded that goal. You're right there. It wasn't like an individual error. It was almost like a catalogue of errors. And once again, when you look back on it in the highlights, you think, how the fuck are we conceding goals like that once again? They're so soft. We're not making it difficult for teams to score against us just now. Or at all this season. We seem to be giving away constant cheap goals. And when you look at how well Ross County had played at the weekend, you knew if they got back into the game, it would be hard for Aberdeen to go on and try and get that second goal. And that's why I thought when we got our noses in front, I thought if we can just hold on, 10, 15 minutes, make it hard for Ross County, force them to chase the game, we'll catch them on the counter, maybe grab a second that way. But unfortunately, we gave them a quick route back into the game, and then it forced us to chase the game to go and get that 3 points. And unfortunately, we never really looked, apart from a couple of chances, we never really looked like getting that second goal.
Yeah, very, very frustrating. Then it takes until 70 minutes for Mr. Glass to then go and make a change, which we'll obviously come on to. I know you want to highlight the change for Jack McKenzie coming on for Funso, obviously to push Johnny Hayes higher. Jack McKenzie, very, very solid defensively. In terms of going forward, maybe doesn't offer that much. And that's the point where you maybe think, why would they not turn to Montgomery, who we saw cause problems against us when he was playing for Celtic?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, yeah, we'll come on to the subs. But it's just that we did have maybe one clear chance that I remember, and it was when we had the counter attack. I know you've seen it on the highlights as well, when Christian Ramirez got himself into a good position and was bearing down on goals. He had Funso Ojo out to his right. I still think last night I thought Ramirez could have probably been a bit more selfish in probably taking that ball a bit further and maybe having a shot. I know what we've just been saying about shooting from distance, but he's our top goal scorer, and I would probably have backed him to work the keeper from that distance. But instead, he unselfishly tries to play in Funso Ojo. It's just a shame the ball he plays to Funso is, well, to be honest, pretty poor and wide and a bit too much pace on it, and it just absolutely killed the momentum of that attack.
Certainly, I think he could have held on to the ball perhaps a little longer and given Ojo a little bit more of a chance to get on beyond him. Instead, it's sort of overhit, forces him wide, and puts Ojo into, well, a pretty poor situation in terms of having to then cross the ball or whatever. Angles then narrows, and it sort of ruins the chance of a goal, which is just very, very, very frustrating. When in terms of there was half chances further on. I think that Ramirez hit a shot with a little bit of backlift, a Brown header. Other than those, and that was probably the clear-cut chance. And yeah, absolutely cocked it up, as is often the case.
Yeah, we've kind of seen that a few times this season with our counter attacks. It's always that final ball that is like too heavy or too out wide, and it's just absolutely killed us. And yeah, the only other chance, you're right, there's that back heel from Funso Ojo. It was kind of a bit unlucky actually. Laidlaw made a bit of a meal of it. Again, under pressure from the corner. We didn't exactly put him under much pressure throughout the game. That one moment he was under pressure late on, he fumbles it, and you just think, well, why have we not been doing that enough throughout the game? But on the subs, when the game's at 1-1, now I don't know what the thought is for those that were watching on TV last night. Maybe those that are tuning into this episode just now will indulge us in the comments. But when he brought Teddy Jenks on for Dylan McGeoch, I really thought it was the wrong substitution. For all that Funso Ojo has done, in terms of his playing as a winger this season, I think Teddy Jenks has looked better going forward, and Dylan McGeoch was giving us a good platform in midfield for taking the ball and passing out wide, starting the moves. Whether or not it was maybe a bit of tiredness from his first game back in a while, but I just didn't understand that substitution in terms of how McGeoch was actually helping us, certainly going forward. And obviously, I know there's been a lot of criticism maybe towards Funso Ojo's performance, but you then had two kind of similar players in Jenks and Ojo on, and it just didn't look right from an Aberdeen point of view.
I did also see some complaints. I think it's a fair point about McGeoch's legs, maybe first game back, but a lot of people saying that if you're going to take off one of the holding midfielders, then it probably should have been Brown last night. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, there's no reason why it couldn't have been Scott Brown. Obviously, I know he's the captain, but yeah, it just didn't make sense. I mean, is Brown unsubstitutionable? Unless, of course, we're playing Celtic.
Seems that way, doesn't it? So look forward to that next week.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take a sweepstake on what minute he comes off with cramp. But Funso Ojo did eventually get substituted. And as I said, for Jack McKenzie, and at 81 minutes with the game finally in the balance at 1-1, I just felt that was such a negative change. And I know, like, I hate always having to draw comparisons between Stephen Glass and previous management, but if this was last season, that change would have been getting absolutely berated in the stands and on social media, and rightly so. I just felt, I know he's obviously then gone to go and push Johnny Hayes further forward, but we have attacking players on the bench in Matty Kennedy, J. Emmanuel Thomas, Michael Ruth. Where's the faith in those players? Where's the faith in the team that one of those players can go and create a chance to win this game? I just felt it was just negative. I just don't understand what the thinking is there. And even because we're allowed 5 subs, he could have then gone and brought somebody else on as well to just do something different, to give Ross County a different headache. They've been used to Johnny Hayes running at them in that second half. Just because he's a bit further up the pitch and doesn't need to do his defensive duty, it's not going to make a difference to them.
Yeah, very true. I do think Montgomery was maybe the better option if you are going to do that. But regardless, further changes when things clearly aren't working could have been made. We've got 5 substitutions. Not only did they not use that, they didn't even use all 3.
Yeah.
But I do think it is probably a scathing indictment of the lack of business that was done in January, which I do think Stephen Glass has possibly been a little bit screwed over in, and he doesn't trust those options off the bench.
Yeah, but it's not helpful then when, if the manager has been screwed over, or if he's got players at his disposal that he doesn't trust, it kind of leaves a bad taste going into what is we called a season defining period for Aberdeen, and I think it's a season defining 10 days that we've got coming up. Our away form, it's 2 wins in 12 now on the road for Aberdeen. Only Dundee have picked up fewer points, and Dundee, of course, sitting bottom of the table now. It's really not encouraging when we go to travel to Livingston this weekend, which of course we're going to preview shortly. And then of course we host Celtic, which I know those games kind of take care of themselves, but not when you've brought in your only other signing on deadline day is unable to play in that game. And then, of course, probably what our season rests on right now, in my opinion, is that Scottish Cup game away to Motherwell. And it fills me with dread because of our away form.
Yes, most certainly. No confidence really whatsoever about any of these games now, which is good when you're booked up to go to both Livingston and Motherwell away. That's fun. That'll be good, won't it? Not sure why we keep doing this to ourselves now that I think about it. Oh God, I'm filled with dread now.
And what's your thoughts on Stephen Glass's post-match comments, where he says that he's glad we didn't lose ground on the teams above us? Obviously, both Hibs and Motherwell picking up points last night. Motherwell with a very last-ditch equaliser. Again, I'm probably glad I only read that this morning, not last night, or that would have been another angry tweet going out. It's just another negative attitude that we've got. We're still 4 points off fourth, albeit with a game in hand, but once again, it's a missed opportunity to actually make ground. Yes, we haven't lost any, but I'm more frustrated we haven't made ground.
Yeah, in a sense, I do agree. I am glad that we didn't lose ground, but when it's more to the point, that's where you are now, where you're drawing away at Ross County, and you're just glad that Hibs and Motherwell didn't win. It's a scathing indictment, to use that phrase once again, and it does feel like also like another missed opportunity too, when you consider they dropped points, another game where we then also go and drop points and only gain 1, and we're exactly where we were at the start of the day, basically.
Yeah, and I suppose more so when we've just touched on that 3 fixtures coming up, it kind of gets it makes, well, certainly me more angry, because Livingston, yes, is the only one of the only 2 venues we've won at this season, but it's going to be a tricky game regardless. Celtic are flying just now. I watched that game at Tynecastle, and the way they put Hearts under that amount of pressure, I kind of fear the worst for us going into that game. And then the Cup, is just a reliance on that. But we're going to come on to the transfer window. But on that point, we take Gary Matthew in the comments saying, our season is done. We're lacking quality all over the park and in the dugout and behind the scenes. Is this an overreaction, or do you think this is the feeling that's kind of eking its way into the Aberdeen support just now?
I would. I think the feeling is building that that's sort of the case. I think the next few results will definitely shape that and probably, well, not probably, but possibly solidify what Gary said there, which is a concern when you're in February and that's already what you're thinking. Jonathan Maiden saying spot on Motherwell in the Cup will be massive. Imagine if we lose that and we're still sort of this mid-table fodder. It's not going to be a pretty sight, is it?
Yeah, it's not. And I actually said last night, I said I'll probably give Stephen Glass until the Cup game, and if we go out with the Cup, I might have to change my opinion on how I feel about Stephen Glass being in charge. But on the flip side, we're still, as I've said, 4 points off of fourth, which is European football. Now, would finishing fourth and getting Europe be deemed a success, Callum?
Well, given how most of the season's gone so far, I'd probably be happy with that now. If you offered me that now, I would definitely, absolutely take it. And so I suppose it then gives something to build off of. We can then attract players with the lure of some sort of European football again, and then maybe he gets another transfer window and is hopefully back slightly more than he was in January. But yeah, I definitely take it about now. If they just said end the season now, you'll get fourth. Perfect, no problem.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens over the coming months on that one. Now, I know Jonathan Main is excited for this part. It's the transfer window, so I hope he's got his popcorn at the ready. Callum, as the transfer window slammed shut at midnight on Monday, or rather meekly at Cormack Park, I think it's fair to say. What was your overriding emotion? Because I know we didn't hold back on, well, both our personal Twitter accounts, but also the Red Tinted Glasses Twitter account either.
My overall feeling was disappointment. I think it has to be said. We've come out of that window still needing one more creative player, whether that's a 10 or a winger and a striker. And it doesn't even sound like we've narrowly missed out on players or anything, because we've not heard anything from, for example, Scott Burns, who seemed to be on the ball with most of it. And it doesn't even seem like we've gone for anyone missed out for whatever reason. It's just very, very frustrating, and we've heard little about it. And now we're left going forward with Christian Ramirez, J. Emmanuel Thomas, Vicente Busau, who's just getting used to the league. Yeah, Vicente, Michael Ruth. And you've got Marley Watkins out for God knows how long. Matty Kennedy, who's featured in one game so far this season. Colin McLennan's brains and legs don't speak, and he wasn't even on the bench. We are very, very limited. What happens if Christian Ramirez gets injured? I mean, at times so far, when he's lacking in service right now and, not getting amongst the goals, if he gets injured, it's going to be even worse. So you've got J. Emmanuel Thomas up there who's going to be knackered after an hour, or Michael Ruth, who has no experience at this level, essentially. We're screwed.
I admire the fact that you think it'll take Jet an hour to get knackered. I give him 10 minutes tops before he gets knackered. But I think that is the overriding emotion. I think actually we're short on two creative players, wingers, as you alluded to there, purely because even if we're speaking about if Ramirez gets injured, what happens if Vicente gets injured?
I'll cry. I'll just cry. That's all that's going to happen.
There's all this focus on what if happens to Christian Ramirez. If Vicente was to get injured, we're then left with Matty Kennedy and Connor McLennan being our wingers for the rest of the season. Fuck me. But the only other signing that was brought in, along with Vicente, was, of course, Dante Polvaro, which we've touched on countless times already, currently on the recovery table after having a double hernia operation. But Adam Montgomery came in on loan from Celtic. Always controversial, Callum, when we sign players from our rivals. People want to say that Celtic are not our rivals this season, as we won't catch them in second. I'm always against developing players for teams in our league. Look at Ryan Christie as an example of what he did when we had him. But you made a very good point on Twitter about the signing of
Not
Adam
like me.
Montgomery. Not like you at all, but how do you want to indulge that point? Let the listeners or viewers that may not have seen that.
Okay, I'll start off by, as much as I'm not enthused by the Adam Montgomery signing, Celtic probably aren't a direct rival. We could potentially develop him, but at the same time, Christie was 18 months, over an 18-month spell where he's playing every week. Montgomery, don't know how much he's going to feature. It's only a 6-month deal right now. So that I'm not too concerned with. I just think it's not very exciting at all or what we need. But I did see a lot of people saying that it's sort of blocking the pathway for our own players, and a lot of people mentioning Kieran Ngwenya in particular. I think he would probably be better off staying out on loan at Kelty Art, especially now. Well, he's playing regularly. You've got Jack McKenzie now sort of back fit. Probably wouldn't be playing much anyway. Probably just be sitting on the bench. So I don't think it's blocking that particular pathway. And maybe this loan sign of Montgomery does then sort of give him more time to play every week at Kelty before coming back in summer and perhaps being involved in our starting 11. So I saw a lot of concerns over that, which I don't think I just don't necessarily agree with, which I'm sure that'll go down well. But it's not, I don't have too many complaints about the signing. But if it was this plus another 2 or another 1 in terms of forward areas, then I would be quite happy. But the fact that is the only deadline day deal we did, it's just nothing. I'm not very enthused, essentially.
No. And I think, I hadn't actually considered that point that you made. And I suppose it's kind of similar to what Neil Simpson had been saying in the local press as well about it's important for these younger players, the likes of Evan Towler, who's at Elgin City, Kieran Ngwenya, as you said there at Kelty. These players are benefiting from playing week in, week out. Yes, I know obviously we've recalled Connor Barron and Jack McIver as well. Okay, to be involved in the first team, but it looks like to be involved in sitting on the bench unless it's Edinburgh City that we're playing. But you're absolutely right. Kieran Ngwenya is going to benefit from playing week in, week out. And if that means then next season it's a fight between him and Jack McKenzie for that left back slot, then so be it. And I think it's a fair point that you make about we'd rather see him getting game time week in, week out than sitting on our bench and maybe going backwards a little bit in his development as well. But with the departure of Niall McGinn and Ryan Hedges, I knew this would come at some point, but of course, the phrase I absolutely hate, feels like a new signing, is what Matty Kennedy was referred to. And I mean, Niall McGinn, yes, he featured sparingly for Aberdeen in the first part of the season, but we've lost 2 wingers that have played throughout that first part of the season in McGinn and Hedges. Kennedy's only played, less than half an hour that he got against St Mirren this season. And like we said, Vicente Bizauen, who's come in from Ado Den Haag. That's a huge amount of pressure. And of course, Conor McLennan, who you don't know what Conor McLennan you're going to get until you see him take the field. There's a real concern that we've sold ourselves short. As I said, 4 points off 4th, still in the Scottish Cup. The season's not over, but I can't help but feel we've almost chucked the season by not investing in the squad well enough. It goes back to that. I said it was kind of not felt this deflated since Danny Ward left in January. That was my feeling after that window closing.
On the point that Matty Kennedy apparently feels like a new signing, even if he does feel like a new signing, it's not a particularly good one, is it? When he's played, at his best, fair enough, maybe slightly enough to cause problems for some teams in the league. But right now, as you say, played for less than half an hour. It's not great, is it? And then we've not even got to the point that we're offering Mikey Devlin another contract, which I can see you're really, really happy about, Glenn. But it does
waste of a wage.
I do feel like we are very, very short, and it's a lot of pressure, as you mentioned, not only on Vicente Bizauen and Conor McLennan, but also Matty Kennedy. So it's basically get up to sharpness now and do something for us.
Yeah,
It's just
exactly.
very, very, very frustrating, and there's some comments coming in about it, which are they're entertaining me a little bit.
Yeah, we'll bring them up in a second, but yeah, no, Ma- Mikey Devlin getting his new contract. Unbelievable how he's managed to get 2 contract extensions from Stephen Glass without even playing for this team. He's either got some very disturbing images on his phone, or, well, fuck knows what, to be honest. But shout out to Cove Don 82 for that tweet of the day on transfer deadline day when he saw the air ambulance coming into Aberdeen and said that is that Devlin being dropped off to sign his contract extension. That very much amused me.
I did enjoy that also. I don't know what it is. Do they think they like owe something to him, or do they think like he's going to come in and absolutely transform our defence? Because
Yeah.
not only are Bates and McCrory performing quite well now, you've got Declan Gallagher, I'm sure, is on a pretty healthy wage. You've got Andy Considine coming back, who, whilst he's not going to absolutely change the team. You know exactly what he's going to get with him.
Yeah.
What's Devlin going to offer that, for example, those two do not? I just don't get it.
Yeah, no, neither do I. And let's be honest, right? When the transfer window closed, there was a lot of frustration, as we've said, both on our individual accounts, on our Twitter page at RTG_podcast, which you can give us a follow at if you don't already do so, but across the Aberdeen Twitter pages, I should say, it was this constant, criticism coming in left, right, and centre. Some was being aimed at Dave Cormack. Some was being aimed at Stephen Gunn, the new director of football, who has done remarkably to get himself into that position. As Lee Seymour comments there saying, I loved how somebody called him a glorified travel agent. To be honest, my highlight of following him was when he used to announce the destinations for the Europa League draw and his little previews on going there. But now he's in charge of the whole footballing operations. Is a bit of a novice, as Jonathan Main kind of calls him. What do we expect with a novice manager and novice director of football? Kind of referring to there about the possibilities around the transfer window. He said in an initial comment there, they think somehow we've got enough, or we've not money, or we've got no money. I also kind of think on that point as well, have we tried to avoid squad fillers for the sake of squad fillers? Look at the likes of Austin Samuels and Matty Longstaff when we signed them previously. Those loan deals didn't work out. Is that maybe come into the thought process?
Maybe, but at the same time, if there was going to be sort of loan deals, I can understand maybe not having squad fillers, because then when it comes to summer, you're kind of stuck because you probably need to then offload them to improve. But it was sort of loan deals towards the back end of the season. You saw sort of Hibs bringing in a forward player from Fulham, those kind of deals, which, it's an option. It might turn out better than Austin Samuels, and if not, there's sort of very little risk attached to it. In terms of sort of the novice director of football and novice manager, I think, I'm not saying I quite like Stephen Glass as a person, but a novice manager can work with an experienced head above him, which is then where the problems lie. Because as a coach, I'm sure Stephen Glass has a lot of good ideas. Perhaps then as a man manager or something with that experience, certainly in terms of recruitment, etc., then you can then benefit from someone more experienced above that to sort of influence things. Of course, I am keeping in mind the Hearts Ian Cathro sort of experiment, which didn't work, but it can certainly work if you have seen it in other places. And I just think the combination of the two is not great. And Jonathan's just said blame lies squarely at Cormac's door, and I would tend to agree with that. He has employed Stephen Glass. That could still probably go either way, but he's not given him a great chance of it being successful with Stephen Gunn up ahead of him. And I mean, they've recruited Vicente Berserwin, but that's one. And I suppose Dante Polvara might turn out okay, but it's not great at all, is it?
No, it's not. And kind of on the point that Jonathan makes here, it's great to have so many of you tuning into this this live. It's probably the most actually we've had since doing these lives. So if you are enjoying it, keep your comments coming. Hit that like and subscribe button if you're watching on our YouTube channel as well. There has been a lot of criticism aimed at Dave Cormack. He can't help himself. He tweeted at the start of the window. He was so quick to shoot down the in the know accounts on social media when it was rumored that Teddy Jenks was going to be going back to Brighton. He shot that down in flames and then came out and said, "We've signed Dante. The window's only just open. Breathe." Well, we were breathing for a while, but a lot of folk were hyperventilating come Monday evening. And Dave, look, you haven't either, go back to the points Jonathan was making about money, either we haven't stumped it up or there's a serious concern because fans once again feel that Dave's failed to live up to a promise that he's made.
I mean, just as well he told us to breathe, because if we were holding our breath for anything exciting to happen, we'd all have perished by now.
It's just unbelievable. Honestly, I'm really surprised he managed to bite his tongue, unless someone took his keyboard away from him, because I was fully expecting tweets from him on deadline day to some extent. But do you understand why criticism is coming Cormack's way after this window?
Yes, I do. I think, did you say that we're not in a position where we need to sell to bring in players, etc.? Well, why didn't we do it? I mean, we paid rumoured to be about £250,000 to £350,000 for Vicente Bisserwin, then got 200,000 for Ryan Hedges, so that's that covered. If we don't need to sell to spend a little bit of money or bring in some players, even on a loan deal, we're just covering wages. Why didn't we? I think talk's a good game. I have bought it at times. Mr. Cormack, maybe it's the pearly whites and the tan that's doing it for me. Who knows?
It's the fact he loves Rowies, isn't it? That's what does it for you.
Yeah, who doesn't? Who doesn't? But even then, he's not done anything like that entertaining for a while. So it's just I'm not happy at all. Nothing for the entertainment or the memes, which isn't great. But it is frustrating. He's promising a lot, and right now we're not seeing much return on those promises. Really, are we?
No, we're not. And and I think we're now starting to see people, I saw someone say that certain sections of the support are throwing their toys out the pram by wanting to cancel their DNA and reacting. But when folk have been promised stuff from the chairman, or like me and you bought into his vision of the club and see that vision not being, met, folk are quite right to decide what they want to do with their money, whether that be not renew the DNA. Me and you are not going to get into it because I think we've made our point abundantly clear on our.
Bit into it.
Okay, well, I'll let you get into it in a second. But again, on that point about Dave promising everything, he loves the limelight. So again, I am stunned he didn't come on and make an appearance on deadline day. But he was promising Q&As. We've still not seen it. But Dave, look, you like being in the attention. We're doing this live. We're not shirking away, good or bad, our reaction. If you want to do it, come on down. Come and join us. We'll do a live with you over in Atlanta. We'll make it an accommodable time. Why not? Come and hear what the fans really have to think. Stop this bullshit hiding behind questions that are filtered through from the club and edited. Fans want to hear the honesty. So the invite's there. There's a seat, a space. We can make this for three of us. It's up to you, Dave. Let's see what you want to do.
I can tell you're hungover and grumpy. I think it's a very good point you make about the DNA. Right. The DNA came in, and as much as I disagree with sort of being awarded loyalty points for that kind of thing, I think there could have been other benefits that they could have got that would have maybe been more fair for the general fan. But at the same time, I commend absolutely anyone who's willing to put that sort of money into the club. Absolutely fair play. But no wonder people who are doing so are sort of thinking about cancelling it, because they're putting their hard-earned money into the club they love, the club they followed their whole lives, just out the goodness of their own, just because they want to, essentially. And yet they're seeing it being spent on, a Celtic player's wages on deadline day. It's meant to be for the whole football operations thing. I mean, okay, we're probably seeing money going in terms of the youth system that we won't see the sort of benefits from, if we do see the benefits from, until years down the line. But part of it is meant to be for the current playing squad. and it's going on Scott Brown's wages and Adam Montgomery coming in on loan from Celtic. It hardly seems worth it, and they were promised a lot. Promised that could transform the football operations.
Yeah.
Where is that, Dave Cormack? Whoever else is in charge of it, where is it?
And you said I was grumpy.
Well, yeah, I'm not even hungover. I just was at a Disney quiz last night instead.
Yes, well, I'm definitely the former, but it is, and I think those are all good points you make, Callum, and it is why frustration, especially when the product on the pitch does not match the promise that was made off it, is going that way. The frustration is building. This is a huge month coming up for Aberdeen. We said it when the season came back from the winter break. You called it season defining, and I think this next week is defining, not just for Stephen Glass but also our season ahead. And if we find ourselves out the Scottish Cup in 10 days' time, I think a lot of question marks will get thrown back at the board for not having that faith in Stephen Glass, or backing him to go and win a trophy. They speak about, oh, we want to see the glory days come back to Aberdeen, we want to win a trophy. Well, show that faith in the manager, that you're prepared to help him do that. Although I know there's probably people out there that don't even have the faith in Stephen Glass to do that in terms of his managerial ability. But you want to see the support coming in from the board too.
Well, yeah, I mean, you question Stephen Glass all you like. I can certainly understand criticisms in terms of sort of his experience and things like that. Definitely, probably the easy option, as criminal metal detectors have said, that offering resistance to sort of Cormac and those above, being in control, perhaps given the Stephen Glass, Dave Cormac, Atlanta link. But now he's in the role, I'd like to see him being sort of supported, and as fans, we do get behind him when we can. And you'd like to see, now that he's there, him getting the backing from the board regardless. And I thought Cormac would be like, this is my man, and I am willing to do whatever it takes to make it work so it looks better for me. That's what I thought was going to happen. But it's sort of not. I employed him because he won't complain about anything. That is sort of what it's starting to look like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose coming to the end of the month, obviously we've got the game against Dundee United, which is going to be the homecoming for Sir Alex Ferguson. I got my tickets for the Friday unveiling of the statue, so I'm looking forward to that. But God, I feel sorry for Alex having to probably endure what might be a painful performance. But the club are obviously trying to get that game a sellout. With the way we're performing in results, it's going to be a hard sell, or will it, given Alex Ferguson's going to be there?
Well, naturally, him being there will obviously bring in a bigger crowd, 100%, and he deserves that. However, even in the games leading up to, etc., or just in general for attendances, he said he wants 15,000 season ticket holders. Try win some bloody games. Maybe that'll help. Goodness me.
Yeah, exactly. And as it's funny, as I said to you in the last episode when we spoke, well, second last episode, because obviously with the storm at the weekend, we couldn't be together to preview the Ross County game. There was folk from my work suddenly getting excited about Aberdeen based on that performance from Rangers, and now 2 games later, they're like, after St Johnstone, I'll just pick and choose when I go back again. Like that, his son's getting into it because the red shed. That's great for the younger support. But what about the older support that are maybe waning or maybe picking and choosing? You want them to keep coming back regularly, take their sons. It just seems to be there's a fine balance just now. Or daughters, yes, absolutely. It's just that fine balance just now with our support coming or going.
Yeah, it's sort of teetering on the edge, really, isn't it? But I have seen, to be fair, with the introduction of the red shed, etc., a lot of people maybe going back or ending up going every week, sort of home and away, regardless, because of that kind of thing. But at the same time, there will be people sort of teetering on the edges. If we started playing this sort of entertaining brand of football as was promised, and we play that every week, and it starts to get results, people will be, of course, be starting to come and getting through those turnstiles. It's entertaining football. Things are going well, but right now, it's not great. And at times there is sort of that, when we do go away and drop points again, it is sort of that apathy again of last season where we're like, well, what did we expect?
Yeah, exactly. And while it is a way that we'd go on Saturday, hopefully not to drop more points, Callum, because it is a trip to Livingston, a venue where we did win our first away game of the season in the league. And Livingston have found themselves in good form, albeit did succumb to St Johnstone last night at home. Their home form has actually probably been their Achilles heel this season, which, given the plastic pitch, I know if the Talk Livy boys are tuning into this episode, will love the fact that I'm mentioning that. Um, it's actually not been a benefit for them this season because they're actually performing better away from home. So, given Livy have been poor at home, we've been poor away. Stick on a 0-0 this weekend.
Oh, it's got all the makings for an absolute classic, doesn't it? Really glad I'm going.
Yeah.
Can't wait for that. I mean, to be fair, we obviously did pull out the bag last time we were down there. If there was other similar, well, okay, it was given us to us out the bag by Strychek. Maybe that's perhaps the case. It would be nice for similar jubilant scenes. However, I would take that, but any sort of win, be it, I'd like obviously a convincing result, but just points on the road, which we massively, massively need, would be very much welcome. And it is a concern, really, that we're now into February and we are seeing that, like, no, not bothered about the form, it's just need the points. It's a worry.
It is a worry, but I think, when I mentioned the comments of Stephen Glass about, keeping in touch with the teams above us and we need to be looking up the table rather than, behind us. Livingston, they could go above us if they actually win this game at the weekend. Obviously, Dundee United still level on points with us as well. It's quite easy. Yes, we're absolutely right to be looking up the table, but we could actually find ourselves dropping down to, I think, about 8th this weekend if we were to come away with the wrong end of a result.
That'll be fun, won't it? There's only so much a small Dutchman and a 6'4" college player can save us, really, isn't it? Once we fall into 8th, it's that result, and then on top of then having to face Celtic plus the Scottish Cup game would be disastrous. It really would be poor. We do need to go down there and somehow pull out a win, regardless of whatever way we get it down the road. It's an absolute must.
Yeah, it's an absolute must. I can't believe I'm saying this about a trip to Livingston already in February. It's a must win. Bloody hell. But the game obviously will be won and lost for me in the final third. Livingston, as I said, they have been in good form despite the defeat last night. And one of the key components to that fine form is, of course, Bruce Anderson. We saw him score the last time we went to Livingston. I think he did score last night, and he grabbed a couple in their last home game against Dundee. He'll definitely be wanting to prove a point again on Saturday.
Absolutely, and it's concerning given how our defence have been, and also you do know Bruce Anderson can be clinical at times, and given some of the chances we give up at times is also a major concern. I just hope that if he does score, that he properly gets it right up us this time. Even though I'll be incensed at the time, just fully commit to it, Bruce, if you're tuning in.
Well, I maybe won't try and fuel his fire too much if he is tuning in. But from an Aberdeen point of view, Callum, it'll be a case of not conceding cheap goals. Hopefully not conceding any would be a good start. But more importantly is supplying Christian Ramirez. Too many times last night I felt he caught a frustrated figure. The supply up to him wasn't the best. We really need to get him involved in the game on Saturday as far up the pitch as we can, because we don't want him having to drop deep to get the ball.
Certainly not, but I do think a lot of that is probably on him too, I guess. Obviously the lack of service he can't help, but he needs to get up onto that final man. We know he does have very, very good movement at times when the balls do go into the box. He can peel off a man to get the shot off. We need to see more of that, where he's on that last man, his movement causing problems, and we need to get the service in. It is massively, massively important. But at the same time, how many times have we said these kind of things and it's just not happened yet? Hopefully this weekend is the case, and that's all we can really say. Hopefully this weekend is finally the time where we get it right on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose since I mentioned it on their podcast, Talk Livi, if you want to hear what my thoughts were for the game, you can tune into their podcast as well. But £20 pay-per-view package for those not going in attendance. When our form's not being that great, I'm sure it's a thought to pay that amount as well. But Callum, with it being a plastic pitch, it suddenly occurred to me with certain players coming back from injury, Jack McKenzie, Johnny Hayes, Dylan McGeoch, is there a chance that these players might not feature on a plastic surface?
I hope they are fit and well enough to do so, but I can certainly understand if they didn't. So definitely Dylan McGeoch. I feel like that. There's no science behind this, but I just feel like Dylan McGeoch and plastic pitches. If you look at those two, you imagine them in your brain. Doesn't go, does it? It just doesn't. Seems like something is going to go drastically wrong. I hope he is fit because obviously he did put in a good shift. I guess against Ross County, we've seen him do so in the fits and starts when he has come in. Johnny Hayes and Jack McKenzie, keep him as far away from that pitch as possible because that is a disaster waiting to happen. Because the last time he came back from injury, then got injured again. So just ease him in, keep him away from the plastic pitch, save it. Save it for the game against Celtic. Is that a good idea? I don't know. But Montgomery, I think he is probably better going forward as well than McKenzie from the small bits I've seen. I'd be quite happy to see him come in if it does mean pushing Hayes further up the park where he probably can cause more problems.
Yeah, because even while I don't know what the injury that Johnny Hayes sustained was, so whether or not that has an impact playing on plastic. But even Matt Kennedy as well, another player obviously coming back from injury. But you start naming all these names, and Jesus Christ, it sounds like it's going to be painful to stitch a decent team together.
You might get a game at this rate.
Yeah, not like we had a window to kind of address those problems just gone by.
Yes. The less we speak about that, the better. Because I've no doubt between now and the end of the season, the fact we didn't spend any more money or get anyone in on loan or whatever, Robert Snodgrass, if you're listening, please sign for us. It will be highlighted, I'm sure, and we will be made even more abundantly aware that we did not do enough between now and the end of the season, almost guaranteed to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the fans will definitely let Dave and the team know that it wasn't good enough if it does go bad. It kind of saw signs of that a little bit last night. The full-time whistle, that the result wasn't good enough, let alone the performance in spells, definitely. And I think it will certainly continue. Could be turn very toxic in the coming weeks if results don't continue to improve. But Callum, hopefully it does improve come Saturday. We will, of course, be back with an episode reviewing the weekend's action at Livingston. And I was going to say looking ahead to that game against Celtic, but I'm never sure if I do look ahead to that. Of course, we will be joined by Colin Watt of the Celtic State of Mind podcast. As usual, Colin always provides a detailed and good insight into all things Celtic. And I know he's well liked when he does come on this podcast. So looking forward to catching up with Colin ahead of that game.
Certainly a very nice man despite his team. Just a word of warning, you are going to have to be very gentle and console me as Caitlin will then have moved to Budapest on the 4th of February. So just make sure you're very nice to me, please.
Yes, I will. And hopefully it'll be a return, I suppose, because you'll be the one that'll be hungover when we catch up to look back at the weekend's action. And with the game coming on Wednesday, we'll probably get that episode out Monday evening. At some point, whether that's on YouTube and of course on audio platforms. If you are watching today on YouTube, remember to hit that like button. Thank you to all of you who have been interacting in the comments. It's really much appreciated. It helps generate the contact, and it's also nice to see your thoughts. Some are aligned in our thinking as well. Remember to hit that subscribe button as well. And if you are listening to this episode, obviously remember this was recorded live at lunchtime on Wednesday, but remember to hit that subscribe button wherever you are listening to get notified of when all episodes come out in future. But once again, thank you very much for watching.